The massive exploration vessel ESS Pathfinder cut through the darkness of space, its sleek hull reflecting Saturn's pale light as it approached the planet's famous rings. Captain Ju Park stood at the command center, her experienced eyes studying the data streams flowing across multiple screens. Ring density is higher than expected, she noted, addressing her science officer Minsu. Adjust our approach vector by 3 degrees. Already done, Captain, Minsu replied with quiet efficiency. They had worked together for 5 years now, long enough to anticipate each other's thoughts. The Pathfinder represented humanity's greatest achievement in space exploration. Equipped with experimental quantum engines and advanced sensor arrays, it was designed to push the boundaries of human exploration beyond the solar system. This mission to Saturn was merely a shakedown cruise before venturing into deeper space. Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy patterns in Sector 7 of the rings, reported Sunho, the young sensor specialist whose talent had earned him a spot on this elite crew despite his age. Define unusual, Captain Park requested. Her interest piqued. Sir, I've never seen anything like this. The reading suggests some kind of folding in the fabric of spacetime, but localized. Captain Park frowned. This wasn't in the mission parameters. Put it on the main screen. The command center fell silent as they observed this strange phenomenon, a subtle rippling effect visible only through the ship's specialized sensors, like invisible fingers disturbing the surface of a pond. Should we maintain distance, Captain? First Officer Hagen asked, his voice carrying a note of caution. Park considered for only a moment. No, this is exactly why we're out here. Prepare a probe for launch. Standard observation package. The crew moved with practiced precision. Within minutes, a small probe detached from the Pathfinder, its thrusters guiding it toward the anomaly. Probe telemetry is strong, Minsu reported. We're receiving clear data. Wait. His voice trailed off as the probe's signal suddenly scattered into meaningless noise. What happened? Park demanded. Unknown, Captain. The anomaly appears to be growing. The ripple effect was indeed expanding, the distortion becoming visible even to the naked eye as it warped the light from distant stars. All stations, alert status, Park commanded. Engines to full reverse. Let's increase our distance until we understand what we're dealing with. But the Pathfinder's powerful engines suddenly failed to respond. Engineering reports drive failure, Hagen announced, his fingers flying across his console. Something is interfering with our systems. Captain Park hit the ship-wide communication. All personnel, secure stations, prepare for unknown event. The anomaly surged toward them faster than should have been possible, engulfing the massive ship in seconds. The hull vibrated at a molecular level, creating an eerie harmonic tone that resonated through every compartment. Captain, Sunho called out, his voice tight with controlled fear. We're being pulled in. Emergency protocols. Park ordered. Launch distress beacon. On Earth, at Mission Control, Admiral Do-Hyun Kim was supervising routine operations when the emergency signal from Pathfinder reached them. The data packet contained only fragments, broken sensor readings, and a partial visual feed showing the command crew struggling to maintain control as strange lights played across their faces. Then nothing. What just happened? Kim demanded, turning to his technical team. Signal lost completely, sir, replied the chief communications officer. No residual transmission, no decay pattern. It's as if the ship simply vanished. Admiral Kim stared at the blank screen. Re-establish contact using all channels, he ordered, maintaining his composure despite the shock. Launch recovery protocols. For the next 72 hours, Mission Control worked without pause. They sent signals on every frequency, dispatched rapid response vessels to Saturn, and analyzed the final transmissions for any clue to the Pathfinder's fate. They found nothing. 3 months later, Admiral Kim stood before the World Space Council, his uniform perfectly pressed despite his exhausted appearance. After thorough investigation, he announced to the stunned officials, "We must conclude that the ESS Pathfinder and all hands have been lost. All tracking systems show complete absence of signal. There is no wreckage, no radiation signature, no evidence of destruction. The ship and its crew of 120 specialists have simply vanished from our solar system." The disappearance of the Pathfinder became a turning point for humanity. Some nations pulled back from space exploration, citing the unacceptable risks. Others pushed forward more cautiously, developing new safety protocols. The families of the crew held memorial services with empty caskets. Years passed. Humanity slowly expanded its reach, establishing small research outposts on distant moons and eventually developing engines capable of reaching nearby star systems. This expansion led to humanity's first contact with alien life. Not one species, but 3 different civilizations already connected through a loose network of trade and diplomatic relations. The most advanced of these, the Nouvelle hegemony, regarded humans with thinly veiled contempt. Their representatives, tall beings with iridescent skin and eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, spoke to human diplomats as adults might speak to particularly slow children. At a diplomatic conference on Mars, the Nouvelle ambassador Tarek examined the latest human technology with an expression that resembled amusement. "Your species has potential," he remarked to the Earth delegation, his translator converting his musical language into flat English. "But you remain centuries from making any meaningful contribution to galactic affairs." Human ambassadors swallowed their pride, knowing Earth needed allies in this vast, unknown universe. With the memory of the Pathfinder still fresh in their collective consciousness, humanity proceeded cautiously, aware of how much they had yet to learn, and how easily they could disappear without a trace. The night shift at Luna Monitoring Station was typically uneventful. Technician Hyunjin stared at his screen, fighting to stay awake during hour 5 of his 8-hour shift. The system monitored the outer reaches of the solar system, tracking known vessels and flagging any unusual activity. Most nights, the biggest excitement was catching the occasional comet. "Another coffee?" asked his colleague Woojin, already heading to their small break room. "Please. Extra strong this time." Hyunjin stretched and glanced back at his screen, then froze. A new alert pulsed in the corner, an anomaly detected near Neptune's orbit. He leaned forward, suddenly wide awake. "Cancel that coffee," he called out. "We've got something." Woojin rushed back to his station. "What is it?" "Unknown object, massive energy signature." Hyunjin's fingers flew across the console. "Getting visual now." The high-powered telescopes automatically swiveled to capture images of the anomaly. As the first pictures loaded, both technicians stared in disbelief. "That's impossible," Woojin whispered. The silhouette was unmistakable, the distinctive outline of the ESS Pathfinder, the ship that had vanished without a trace 7 years ago. But this vessel, while recognizable in its basic shape, was clearly altered. Its hull gleamed with strange, flowing patterns that seemed to shift even as they watched. Unusual structures extended from its frame, like nothing in Earth's engineering catalog. "Call the director," Hyunjin said, his voice shaking. "Now." Within 30 minutes, Luna Station's observation room filled with senior officers. Director Minji Han studied the live feed, her face unreadable. "Are we certain it's the Pathfinder?" she asked. "The hull registration matches," confirmed Chief Analyst Chuno. "But those modifications, our sensors can't even identify the materials. And the energy readings, they defy known physics, Director." Any communication? As if in answer to her question, the communication officer's console lit up. "Incoming transmission, Director. It's coming from the vessel. Put it through." The room fell silent as a familiar voice filled the space, a voice from the past, from countless historical recordings of the famous lost mission. "This is Captain Ju Park of the ESS Pathfinder requesting approach vectors to Earth. Repeat, this is Captain Park. We are returning home." The voice carried the same calm authority it had 7 years earlier, unchanged, unaged. "Is this a real-time communication?" Director Han demanded. "Yes, ma'am." "Signal origin confirms it's coming from that vessel." Director Han hesitated only briefly. "Open channel." When the light turned green, she spoke clearly. "Captain Park, this is Luna Station Director Minji Han. Your vessel has been missing for 7 years. We need to confirm your identity." A pause followed then. "I understand, Director. We're prepared for authentication protocols. Though from our perspective, much less time has passed." Within minutes, Earth's defense systems activated. The news of Pathfinder's return reached Defense Minister Taehyung Lee, who immediately convened an emergency Security Council meeting. The vessel matches Pathfinder's signature, but shows extensive modifications of unknown origin. He explained to the gathered officials, "We don't know what's returned to us. Proceed with caution." 4 military vessels intercepted the Pathfinder as it entered Mars orbit. Their instructions were clear. Escort the vessel, but maintain defensive posture. Commander Jin Young of the Intercept Fleet established visual contact with the Pathfinder's bridge. The face that appeared on his screen was indeed Captain Park, looking exactly as she had in her last recorded transmission 7 years earlier. "Captain Park, welcome back," Commander Jin Young said cautiously. "We'll escort you to Earth Orbital Station. Please maintain your current speed and trajectory." "Understood, Commander," Park replied. "We have much to explain." As the small fleet approached Earth, millions watched the live stream. The modified Pathfinder caused global sensation, its hull now covered in swirling patterns that seemed to absorb and redirect light. Strange, elegant structures extended from the ship's frame, moving occasionally as if adjusting to invisible forces. At the heavily guarded orbital station, the boarding party prepared, led by Security Director Yumna. The team included military personnel, scientists, and medical staff, all wearing environmental suits as a precaution. "Remember, we observe only," Yumna instructed. "No matter what we find, maintain protocol." When the airlock opened, they found the Pathfinder's interior dramatically altered. The familiar corridors remained, but the walls now featured the same flowing patterns as the exterior. Strange light sources embedded in the ceiling emitted a soft glow that seemed to respond to their presence. Most striking was the absence of any visible technology. No screens, no control panels, no obvious machinery. Captain Park greeted them at the main hall, standing calmly with her senior officers. They wore their standard uniforms, appearing completely normal and completely unchanged from 7 years ago. "Welcome aboard," Park said simply. "I understand you have questions." Yunha struggled to maintain her professional demeanor. "Captain Park, medical examination is our first priority." "Of course. My crew and I will comply with all protocols." The medical team examined the Pathfinder crew with increasing amazement. Every scan showed them to be perfectly healthy humans, with one impossible detail. Their cellular age indicated no passage of time since their last medical records 7 years earlier. "It's as if they haven't aged a single day," the chief medical officer reported. Meanwhile, the scientific team explored the modified ship, finding technology that defied understanding. Rooms that reconfigured themselves based on thought patterns, materials that responded to touch like living tissue, energy systems with no visible power source. "What happened to you?" Yuna finally asked Captain Park directly. Park's expression remained calm, but her eyes reflected something Yuna couldn't name, something ancient and new all at once. "We encountered something beyond our understanding," Park explained. "Something that changed us, changed our ship. We've traveled much farther than you can imagine." She paused, looking at each member of the boarding party. "And we've brought back knowledge that will change humanity forever." As night fell over Earth, billions looked up at the sky, knowing that the impossible had happened. The lost had returned, bringing with them something unknown, something that would soon reveal just how small humanity's place in the universe truly was. The United Earth Council chamber had never been so full. Representatives from every nation sat in tense silence. Military officers lined the walls. Scientists clutched beta tablets, whispering to each other. After 3 days of quarantine and testing, Captain Ju Park and her senior officers had been cleared to address Earth's leadership directly. President Minjin stood as Captain Park entered the chamber. 7 years had passed for Earth, but Captain Park looked exactly as she had the day the Pathfinder disappeared. She walked with the same confident stride, but there was something different in her eyes, a depth that hadn't been there before. "Captain Park, welcome home," President Minjin said. "The world has many questions." Park nodded. "I understand. What happened to us is difficult to explain, but I will try to be clear." The lights dimmed as she reached the podium. The room fell completely silent. "Our mission to Saturn ended when we encountered what we thought was a spatial anomaly," Park began. "It was actually a pathway, what the Keepers call a fold in reality. The Pathfinder was pulled through this fold, across distances our instruments couldn't measure." She paused, looking around the room. "We encountered them beyond the galactic rim," she continued. "They called themselves the Keepers, the last 3 survivors of a civilization that had mastered the fundamental forces of reality." A murmur spread through the chamber. Admiral Do-Yun Kim, who had announced the Pathfinder's disappearance 7 years earlier, leaned forward. "Are you saying you traveled beyond our galaxy?" "Yes, Admiral. Though traveled isn't quite right. Space as we understand it was folded. For the Keepers, distance is a different concept." Science Officer Min-Soo Kang stepped forward. Unlike Captain Park, who maintained a calm exterior, Min-Soo's excitement was visible. He had been the ship's youngest senior officer before their disappearance, a brilliant physicist who had helped design the Pathfinder's original engines. "The Keepers exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously," he explained. "They created their fold to bring us to them, because they were dying. Their civilization was billions of years old, but even they couldn't escape the end." President Minjin's brow furrowed. "Why choose humans? Why choose your ship?" "They had been watching us," Captain Park replied. "For centuries, they observed Earth's transmissions, our art, our conflicts, our growth. They studied many species across many galaxies. They were impressed not by our technology," Min-Soo added, his voice filled with wonder, "but by our capacity for growth despite our flaws. They saw how humans could learn from mistakes, how we could evolve our thinking." A skeptical voice called from the back of the room. "So advanced beings chose humans as what? Their heirs?" Captain Park nodded. "Exactly that. The Keepers were the last of their kind. They knew they were facing extinction. They wanted their knowledge to continue." Defense Minister Tae-Yin Lee, who had ordered the Pathfinder's interception, stood up. "And we're supposed to believe they gave you their technology out of generosity." "We spent what felt like months with them," Park said. "They shared their history, their science, their philosophy. They modified our ship, integrated their systems with ours." "Show them," Min-Soo whispered to Park. Captain Park nodded and removed a small device from her pocket, a simple cube that glowed with soft blue light. She placed it on the table. The cube floated upward, hovering at eye level. "This contains a fraction of their knowledge," she said. The cube expanded, creating a 3-dimensional model of complex equations and structures that filled the air around them. Scientists in the room gasped. "What you're seeing rewrites our understanding of physics," Min-Soo explained. "The Keepers mastered gravity as a tool, not just a force. They could convert matter efficiently, without energy loss. They developed defensive systems that don't destroy. They simply neutralize." To demonstrate, Min-Soo took a pen from his pocket and tossed it toward the floating model. Before the pen could pass through the projection, it stopped midair, then gently lowered to the table. "No destructive force," Min-Soo said, "just a redirection of energy." The room erupted in voices. President Minjin called for order. Captain Park waited for quiet, then continued. The Pathfinder now carries this technology, not as weapons, but as tools. The ship can generate its own gravity field. It can convert raw materials into whatever we need. Its defensive systems can protect without harm. If what you're saying is true, Defense Minister Lee interrupted, this technology would make its possessor unstoppable in military terms. Yes, Park agreed simply, which is why the Keepers chose their inheritors carefully. Medical Officer Ji-hoon joined them at the podium. He had been quiet until now, observing the room's reactions. The Keepers were not just scientists, he explained. They were philosophers, historians. They studied thousands of species. They chose humans because they saw something unique in us. The Keepers believed we would use these gifts wisely, Captain Park added. They chose us specifically because we understand struggle and compassion in equal measure. They saw our violent history, yes, but they also saw how we overcome it, how we strive to be better. A hush fell over the room again. We come home changed, Park said softly. Not just our ship, not just our knowledge, but our understanding of our place in the universe. The Keepers taught us that technology without wisdom leads to extinction. They saw that humans have the potential for both. President Minjin studied Captain Park's face, searching for deception and finding none. What happens now? He asked finally. We share what we've learned, Park answered. Carefully, responsibly. The Keepers didn't give us their knowledge to hoard, but to help humanity advance, to help us join the greater community of intelligent life that exists beyond our limited view. And if we misuse it? Someone asked. Captain Park's expression became solemn. Then we will have failed not just the Keepers, but ourselves. As the meeting continued into the night, Earth's leaders began to grasp the magnitude of what had returned to them. The Pathfinder had brought back more than advanced technology. It had brought a challenge, a responsibility that would test humanity's worthiness of the impossible gift it had received. News of the Pathfinder's return spread across the galaxy faster than Earth could control it. The modified ship, now docked at Earth's orbital station, became the focus of intense speculation among the 3 alien civilizations that had contact with humanity. The Mura, a peaceful trading species, sent diplomatic inquiries. The Vexel, curious scientists by nature, requested permission to send observers. But the Nuveri hegemony, the most powerful of the 3 civilizations, responded with alarm. In the Nuveri High Command Center, Supreme Commander Ikar studied the reports with narrowed eyes. The Nuveri had dominated their region of space for centuries, maintaining technological superiority over younger species like humans. The thought of Earth possessing advanced technology they didn't understand threatened this careful balance. Unacceptable, Ikar announced to his War Council. If these reports are accurate, Earth has acquired technology beyond their development level. Such jumps in advancement are dangerous and destabilizing. Perhaps we should investigate diplomatically first, suggested his second-in-command, a rare voice of moderation. Ikar dismissed the idea with a wave of his hand. We will send a proper response. Prepare the 8th Fleet. On Earth, Defense Minister Lee received the news with grim recognition. The Nuveri have launched 8 warships toward our system. He reported to the Emergency Council. Their official message claims concern about unregulated technological proliferation, but their actions suggest different motives. President Minjin looked troubled. How much time do we have? 3 days until they reach our outer defense perimeter, Admiral Kim answered. We can mobilize our fleet, but against 8 Nuveri warships. He didn't finish the sentence. Everyone knew Earth's military vessels were no match for Nuveri technology. Captain Park, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. Let me intercept them in the Pathfinder. The room fell silent. That would be suicide. Defense Minister Lee objected. 1 ship against 8 Nuveri warships. The Pathfinder is not what it once was, Park reminded them. The Keeper technology gives us options you haven't seen yet. Captain, we appreciate your confidence, President Minjin said carefully, but we cannot risk losing the Pathfinder and its knowledge. Science Officer Minsu stepped forward. Madam President, the defensive systems alone make the Pathfinder virtually indestructible. We could demonstrate to the Nuvari that their usual approach won't work anymore. The debate raged for hours. Earth's military leaders wanted to combine forces, use their fleet alongside the Pathfinder. Captain Park insisted that a single ship would send a clearer message. The Nuvari respect strength, she explained. They need to see that we aren't the same humans they've dismissed for years. Finally, President Minjin made her decision. Captain Park has permission to intercept the Nuvari fleet, but only at the edge of our system. If the situation deteriorates, our forces will move in. 2 days later, the Pathfinder left Earth orbit. Even the crew members who had experienced the ship's transformation were still adjusting to its new capabilities. The engine room no longer housed conventional drives, but a swirling core of energy that bent space around the vessel. The bridge featured no buttons or screens, just smooth surfaces that responded to thought and touch. First Officer Heijin studied their course. "We'll intercept the Nuvari fleet near Jupiter's orbit," he reported. "Their current speed suggests they're not trying to hide their approach." "They want us to see them coming," Captain Park nodded. "They're expecting us to be intimidated." Science Officer Minsu joined them on the bridge. "I've prepared the defense protocols. Which level do you want to activate when we meet them?" "Let's start with the minimum," Park decided. "This isn't about humiliating them. It's about changing the conversation." As Jupiter's massive form appeared on their sensors, the Nuvari fleet came into view. 8 massive warships arranged in attack formation. Their design emphasized their weaponry, with massive gun ports and missile launchers visible along their hulls. "They're hailing us," Communications Officer Subin reported. The main view screen activated, showing the stern face of Nuvari Commander Tarek. His skin had the typical Nuvari iridescent sheen, and his eyes seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Earth vessel," he said without greeting. "You will power down and prepare for boarding. We must contain this situation. Surrender your vessel for proper study under hegemony supervision." Captain Park kept her expression neutral. "Commander, we welcome peaceful discussion about our recent discoveries, but we will not surrender our ship." The Nuvari commander's expression hardened. "This is not a request. Your species has acquired technology beyond your development level. This presents a danger to galactic stability." "The technology we have acquired was given freely," Park responded. "We intend to use it responsibly." "Responsibility requires supervision by more advanced civilizations," Commander Tarek stated. "You have 1 hour to comply, or we will take necessary action." The screen went dark. "They're moving to surround us," Heijin reported. "Standard containment formation." Captain Park nodded. "Let them." The hour passed in tense silence. The Pathfinder remained still as the Nuvari vessels positioned themselves in a sphere around it, weapons ports open and aimed. "They're hailing us again," Subin announced. This time, Commander Tarek didn't bother with explanations. "Your time has expired. We will demonstrate our capabilities once before we take your ship." 2 of the Nuvari vessels fired energy weapons, not directly at the Pathfinder, but close enough to show their power. The energy bursts were designed to disable normal ship systems. "Now Minsu," Captain Park ordered quietly. Minsu placed his hand on a section of the console that glowed slightly brighter. "Defensive Protocol 1. Active." A subtle ripple spread outward from the Pathfinder, invisible except on their specialized sensors. When it reached the Nuvari ships, every weapon system on all 8 vessels simultaneously powered down. Their engines stalled, leaving them drifting in space. Only their life support and communications remained functional. Commander Tarek's face appeared again on screen, his expression showing shock for the first time. "What have you done?" "We have neutralized your offensive capabilities," Captain Park explained calmly. "Your crew is safe. Your life support systems function normally. You can communicate with each other and with us. But you cannot attack, and you cannot leave." She leaned forward slightly. "We have no desire for conflict," Commander, but we will no longer accept being treated as lesser beings. Earth is ready for respectful dialogue as equals. The Nuveri commander's face showed a complex mix of emotions: anger, disbelief, and the first hints of something the Nuveri rarely displayed toward humans: respect. "You have our attention," he said finally. "Perhaps it is time for a different conversation." Captain Park nodded. "I believe it is." The Grand Hall of the United Earth headquarters glowed with soft light. It had been rebuilt using Keeper technology: walls that adjusted their transparency to let in natural light, materials that purified the air, and energy systems that required no external power. Today, it held representatives from 17 different species from across the galaxy. Captain Ju Park stood near the main entrance, watching the diverse gathering with quiet satisfaction. 3 months ago, the Nuveri had come to take the Pathfinder by force. Now their representatives sat at the same table as humans, engaged in respectful conversation. "Still hard to believe," said First Officer Hagen, joining her. "Look at them all." The hall buzzed with activity. Tall, slender Mira discussed gravity manipulation with Earth physicists. Vexel scientists examined samples of Keeper materials with human engineers. Even the Nuveri had sent their best scholars instead of military commanders. Most surprising were the 12 other species that had never contacted Earth before. News of the Keeper technology and humanity's approach to sharing it had spread rapidly through existing galactic networks. "The President is ready to begin," an aide informed them. President Jin Woo Choi stepped onto the central platform. Unlike most political leaders, he wore a simple outfit with no decorations or symbols of power. This was deliberate. The Keeper philosophy valued knowledge and wisdom over titles and authority. "Welcome to Earth," the President began, his voice carrying easily through the hall. 3 months ago, our world changed forever when the Pathfinder returned with knowledge beyond our understanding. We faced a choice then, one that many civilizations have faced throughout history. He paused, looking around the room. "We could have kept these advances to ourselves," he continued. "We could have used them to dominate, to build weapons, to establish ourselves as the new power in our region of space. Instead, we established today the Keeper Protocol, an agreement to share this knowledge with all peaceful civilizations." A murmur of approval spread through the gathered representatives. "This protocol has 3 principles," President Choi explained. "First, technology must serve life, not destroy it. Second, advancement must benefit all, not just the powerful. Third, knowledge brings responsibility to use it wisely." The Nuveri representative, a respected scholar named Naira, stood to address the assembly. This was significant. The Nuveri rarely showed such respect to other species. "The hegemony acknowledges Earth's wisdom," Naira stated formally. "When humans neutralized our warships, they could have destroyed us. Instead, they invited us to learn. This changes how we view your species." Science Officer Minsu stepped forward, activating a display that filled the center of the hall with complex schematics. "Today we share the first phase of Keeper technology," he announced. "Clean energy generation that requires no fuel. Matter conversion that eliminates waste. Medical advances that can heal previously incurable conditions." The representatives leaned forward, eyes wide with interest. "Each world will receive a teaching team," Minsu continued. "Pathfinder crew members who understand both the technology and its proper application. In the following hours, agreements were signed. Plans were made for exchange programs. Species that had once competed now spoke of collaboration." Late that evening, after most guests had departed, Captain Park and First Officer Hagen walked through the quiet gardens outside the headquarters. "Tomorrow we choose our teaching assignments," Hagen remarked. "Have you decided which world you'll visit?" Park shook her head. "I'm staying with the Pathfinder. There's still so much we haven't explored from the Keeper database." Hagen nodded, then asked the question that had been on his mind for months. "Why do you think they really chose us?" "The Keepers. Out of all the species they could have selected." Captain Park was silent for a moment. She had never shared everything about her final conversation with the three keepers, those ancient beings whose physical forms were more light than substance. They told me they searched for millennia for the right inheritors, she finally revealed. They watched countless civilizations rise and fall. They chose humans not because we're perfect, but because we're balanced, capable of both great wisdom and terrible mistakes, and most importantly, of learning from both. Heijin considered this, so our flaws were actually in our favor. Our awareness of our flaws, Park corrected. The keeper said many advanced species forget their origins. They become so certain of their superiority that they stop growing. Humans still question ourselves. We still wonder if we're doing the right thing. The next morning, they gathered at the newly constructed spaceport where the ESS Harmony waited, the first vessel built with Keeper technology, but designed by human engineers. Unlike the Pathfinder, which had been transformed by alien hands, the Harmony represented humanity's first steps in applying what they had learned. Its hull gleamed in the morning sun, the flowing patterns now understood as energy conduits rather than mere decoration. The vessel was larger than the Pathfinder, but required only half the crew, as many systems functioned semi-autonomously. Captain Park had been asked to speak at the launch ceremony. As she approached the podium, she saw familiar faces in the crowd. Admiral Kim, who had announced the Pathfinder's disappearance years ago. Defense Minister Lee, who had once prepared for war with the Nuvari. Scientists who had examined the returned Pathfinder with suspicion and wonder. 7 years ago, the Pathfinder vanished, and Earth mourned, she began. Today, we celebrate not just its return, but the path it opened for us. The Keepers gave us technology, yes, but more importantly, they gave us perspective. She gestured toward the Harmony. This ship represents our response to that gift. We go forward not as conquerors, she announced, her voice strong and clear, but as explorers and bridge builders. The universe is vast, and we have much to learn, and now much to offer in return. As the Harmony lifted off, its gravity systems allowing it to rise silently into the blue sky, Captain Park watched with mixed emotions. Part of her journey was ending, but a new one was beginning for humanity. Later that day, she returned to the Pathfinder, which would soon depart on its own mission, to explore beyond known space, seeking other civilizations that might join the growing galactic community. First Officer Heijin met her at the airlock. "Everything's ready, Captain." Park nodded, feeling the familiar hum of the ship beneath her feet. "The Keepers knew we would make mistakes along this path," she said quietly. They were counting on it. Mistakes. Heijin looked puzzled. "Yes," Park smiled, "because that's how humans learn best." As Earth grew smaller in their view screen, the Pathfinder accelerated toward the stars that waited beyond their solar system, no longer unreachably distant, but now within humanity's reach. The end.